My light's falling right as Hey, you are listening to Thank Me for My Cervix. It's a podcast where we talk about all things mental health with a focus in the veteran and the military community. I'm your host. That's my phone telling me I'm live. I'm your host, Marine Corps veteran Shauna Marie. And as always, you can listen to every episode live right here on Instagram. You can listen to the audio on Spotify, and you can watch the reruns on YouTube. All that information is in the bio. Also, we have shirts, support your favorite podcast, and Left Foot, Right Foot, which is a company who donates 100% proceeds to veterans in need. And if you are passionate about mental health, you do not have to be in the military, but if you care about people, be on my podcast. Come talk to me. And I kind of see it now as like a therapy session. You can come and we can talk about how to better yourself, how you think I can better. It's just a great platform for us to just come together and talk, and I love it. So yeah, that link is in my bio too. Be a guest on here. Come talk to me. I love that. So today's guest, his last name, I'm not going to pronounce his last name. I don't even know why I said that, because I don't know how. But Max, he is a Marine Corps veteran and an Army National Guard veteran. So we're going to kind of get both aspects today, and then he is going to share his journey with us. So I'm super excited. Let's get him on. He just requested.
Hello?
Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to come talk to me today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. And I'm going to say the way to pronounce my last name, I'm so used to it, is Stanky.
Okay, yeah, but my last name too is the same thing, so I just don't even try anymore. We'll call you Max. Hi, Max. So
That's fine.
tell me a
It
little
was,
bit about growing up. We're gonna jump right into it because I like to learn about people and we won't waste time. Tell me a little bit about growing up and then how you got to chose the military.
so I grew up in a town north of Milwaukee, about a half hour smaller town called Cedarburg, Wisconsin, if you can hear from my accent. And I did not have the best home life growing up. My mother and father, nice terms, my mother was a alcoholic. My father was a bum with a gambling addiction. And I was thankfully raised by two decent grandparents, but after they passed away though when I was 8, 9 years old, about a year and 18 days apart.
Oh my God.
And yeah, no, so I bounced around family members' home a lot and stuff. And luckily, though, I found a good outlet growing up. Um, my outlet was wrestling, and I'm just a huge shout out to the Askren Wrestling Academy because Ben Askren, who gave me the chance to go wrestle at his club when it is not a very horrible thing to do for someone with a poorer background. I actually grew up in a town where everybody, not saying they're privileged, but they came from a way better background than I did, and it was very hard being that one person that was very different from everybody else. But
I really love that you brought up wrestling because there's so many things that people can do to help their mental health, but like sports is really one of those outlets that people like. Wrestling is so great for that.
kind of backtracking, my dad was also a Marine,
Okay.
and as much as he did play a small part in that, I remember being a little kid. It was Halloween, and he was like, "I'm looking at the costume." I'm like, "I want the Army costume because green was my favorite color." And he's like, "No, you want the Marine Corps costume. Marines are the best. Remember that. Marines are always the best." And I'm like, "All right."
Yeah. So
And
how
then,
long you said your dad was in too? How long did
yes,
he
my dad
serve?
was also actually in the Marines and the Army. My dad and me did it a little differently.
Okay, well
Like
that's super awesome. I
that,
really do want to talk about the transition because I haven't had, I know a lot of people that have done it, but I haven't had a guest on yet that's kind of been in both. So I like that. So,
mhm.
so we'll start with the Marines though first. What year did you join, and then how did you choose a job? Like, how did that come about?
I joined in 2016. I graduated high school in 2015. I wanted to always join the Marine Corps, but due to a lot of family and personal issues going to my senior year, I had to put that off. and I was just focused on getting through my senior year of wrestling, getting through my senior year, and I kind of had some obstacles I had to overcome because I was not very something I know a lot of people don't like to admit and talk about. I failed my ASVAB on the math portion, and I said, you know what? The way I got to do this and fix this, I went out, got myself a tutor. I paid for it. I studied hard. Like PT was never the worry, the physical stuff. I was at my RSS. No one could touch me on the mile and a half run. I was always up there with pull ups. I could knock my crunches out. But no, I really dedicated myself, and I wanted to be a Marine more than anything. And especially because I came from a high school where they just encouraged people to join the military. My cousin's actually is an Army vet, and they told her guidance counselor she was stupid for joining the military because she had very good grades. So to me, I thought joining the Marine Corps was a very honorable thing to do when when you're separating yourself apart from everybody else.
I love talking about that. That's a really good point because, well, especially Marines, Marines, their ASVAB is not one of the higher ones. Like sometimes people will do the ASVAB and they don't qualify for like the Air Force, but they can do the Marines. But in poor economies or poorer places, the ASVAB is failed often. And that's not talked about because it's just like you have to still have a certain amount of intelligence to go in it. And I love that you took that time to learn, to be like, okay, this is really what I want to do, and did all the steps to do it. And I really like that.
Mm-hmm. So, yep, I joined. Most people will talk about their recruiter and be like this and that. My recruiter, I might get a little emotional right here because he was one of my best friends, big brother, leader, mentor. Me and him, even my time throughout the Marine Corps, I come home on leave, hang out with him. He got stationed out by where I was when I came back from deployment. And no matter what, he was always there for me. But he really was a mentor and a leader. So he pushed and guided me. And when the time came and we're looking at jobs and he said, what do you want? I'm like, I want infantry because I wanted to be with the hardest, meanest, toughest guys. But he also said, be careful what you wish for because I think a lot of people think, oh, I want to be in the infantry. I want to do this when it's really the infantry is a hard, gritty lifestyle. So yeah, I joined. I went to boot camp in October of 2016. I graduated there in January. Then I went to the west. I went to the West Coast, San Diego, and then SOI also in Pendleton. And then after there, I was sent to 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, Camp Horno, Thundering Third, Balls of the Corps. I had to throw that out there.
Oh, I love it. I'm here for it.
But yeah, no, that was also quite a journey in there because you show up to the fleet, guys are barking at you, guys are yelling at you, guys are busting down your door. It's definitely a harsh reality, and I think in some aspects of it, some guys I may get a little hate this way, but some guys do get really mistreated. But in I think there's a very big difference though, because sometimes in the infantry you do need the harsh reality of sometimes your senior does need to take you up Morty Hill, where Recon Hill, and smoke you when you make certain mistakes that could possibly harm people's lives.
I love that because there has to be a balance because the military you're tough. You have to be tough. There's a mission that you need to accomplish and you have to be prepared for that. But what the other side to that is there's ways to go about that. And sometimes because you get power within ranks as you go up in your time in service. And sometimes
most definitely.
Yeah, with that power, people misuse it. And they are not teaching the right way.
No, and that is something I will say that was definitely a huge issue while I was in, because when we were on deployment, there was a lot of chaos in our platoon. I will say this, I had some amazing squad leaders, I had some amazing team members, but I also had some other leadership that wasn't the best. And there was a time on deployment where I wasn't doing the best, and basically they, instead of being the leader I need you to be, they thought it was better to go after me, and it really actually messed with my head a lot of ways. It really made me feel worthless. It's just a lot of guys I've seen, and That aspect,
Very common. That's very common.
well, the other aspect I want to talk about how dangerous just the job of an infantryman is. In October of 2017, something I don't think people talk about, we had a buddy actually catch shrapnel in his leg on a range in 29 Palms and lose his leg, and that's just the other aspect of it. Like, training for war is pretty dangerous too. Like, it was not a feeling any of us want to ever feel again. We've actually had issue with leadership in the past, not later on, or me and my peers, because the leadership wants to do something a certain way and push guys that weren't ready to do that. And we're like, we've seen the outcome of what happens when you push too fast with training sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, I love those topics that you're talking about. So, I do want to talk a little bit. What point did you realize, like, maybe the Marines, like, you didn't want to re-enlist, but that you wanted to transfer over to the Army or National Guard?
Well, I kind of got to get through another part because
Oh, okay,
like we came back from deployment. The deployment was, I think, mentally very taxing on a lot of us. We were in the Middle East. We were in Djibouti, Africa. We were in Indonesia. We never saw direct combat. Like, the most thing that ever happened was someone popped shots outside our FOB, but we were constantly in scenarios where we were almost put into some serious situations. But I think because we were on a because we were constantly always isolated, and the best way I like to compare it is like the movie Jarhead. You drop a guys somewhere, you isolate them, and it really plays with your head. But we all came back, and I really started to actually do very well in my Marine Corps after that. I bounced back from that adversity. I picked all my peers I served with in my platoon. I picked up corporal before them. I was getting thrown NCO leadership billets. My XO, who's an amazing guy, really helped push me. We went and did the Southwest Border mission, which was one of the most awesome things I ever got to do in my Marine Corps career. And then, but during that time, though, I had a foot injury that really kind of affected my military career at that point. Because of that injury, I wasn't able to extend for our next deployment because I didn't have enough time in our contract. I had surgery, and actually, when I had surgery, it was right before COVID got real serious, and that kind of COVID kind of plays into the part of why I didn't re-enlist per se into the Marine Corps, because everything, odds are, if you're an infantryman, there's a high possibility you're going to stay in California. And I didn't want to stay out there, but part of me, I don't know, I was battling in my head because part of me is like, you know what, extend a year in your contract, work on getting healthy, maybe go be a recruiter. But then this is how the Army National Guard likes to get Marines. Hey, you want to go do this re-enlistment for the Guard for $20,000? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
do actually. Funny you ask.
it's like, yeah, and I'll be honest, like, there's parts of the Guard I don't regret, but I honestly wish I would have either went Marine Corps Reserves or just stayed active duty Marines, because the Army National Guard and the Marine Corps are really two different elements, and it was really hard because their culture was a lot different than ours. And being a Marine, you're so much more prideful. You care so much more about a lot of things than they do in the Army. And I'm not saying the Army National Guard doesn't do a good job or anything on the lines of that, but they really are a different breed from us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard to explain that difference to people who aren't in, but I mean, I feel like everyone who is in recognizes that and realizes that there are the differences.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a question before we continue. You got surgery on your foot, and then
Yes.
is it better? Did you recover? How did you deal with
that? I've never been the same from my surgery. So I'll put it this way. I was someone on average in the Marine Corps that ran between like an 18 and a half and 19-minute 3-mile. And now, ever since my foot surgery, if I run a mile, my foot will lock up because of I had a plate and 3 screws put into my foot.
Oh my gosh. So how did that affect you transitioning from the Marines?
Actually, that's the big other thing I want to talk about is just how hard the infantry is on guys' bodies. And this is just me, I'm advocating for a lot of my friends in this situation here. I have a buddy who's had double knee surgery. I have buddies with severe back problems. I actually have, because of my foot injury, I have issues with my left knee and both my hips now and my lower back.
Oh,
And
yeah,
like,
no, that's really important to talk about too, because for females, when I was going through, they weren't allowed. Like, we weren't really active in the infantry, but we had the males packs like on hikes and stuff, and it's almost guaranteed that women that were enlisted during a certain time frame, and it was when I was in, will get hip disability because the packs weren't meant to fit us right. But if that's doing that to the females, how are they not making sure that that's not happening to the men that are wearing that like all the time?
well, I think the big issue too, because the big thing in the infantry, I remember a buddy of mine, he hurt his knee, and someone said to him, "Welcome to the infantry. We all have bad back, bad knees. Get the bitch out of your heart." And guys really, the infantry really, in one retrospect, is not, in those 4 years, I like to say it like it's an NFL running back. The difference is we don't really have the time to go to medical. You're looked down on for going to medical. It's really stuck at the, pardon my French, suck it the fuck up and get back to work.
Oh,
Like, we don't have
absolutely.
time for it. And I've seen a lot of guys having issues now that we get out of the military. Like, our bodies don't work the same. Like, my fiance, I wake up every morning and she hears me get out of bed, my whole lower body cracks, and she's just teasing me. I'm 27 right now, and she's like, "You're not even 30 yet," and I'm like, "No." And there's a big aspect. I'm gonna go into that about transition in a bit, but like, no, the military is very rough on your body, and I think that's just a huge part of it. And my foot surgery, basically what happened was I had a bunion about this big on my foot, like it was like a golf ball. My big toe was curving over. Like, I had people who could see the bunion in my boots. That's how bad it was. And my left foot was curved out on like a 45-degree angle.
Oh
So
my
they had
gosh.
they had to go in, re-straighten out the foot and shave off the bunion. Like, if it was just a simple small bunion, because there's a guy in my unit who had a bunion surgery the same time as I did. They just shaved his off. He was able to be up and walking a lot quicker than I was.
Okay.
But like I came back from convalescent leave and I was still on crutches.
Did it not go right, or did they give you a reason why it didn't heal properly?
Foot surgeries I found out are, from talking to a lot of people that have had them, are not something that that they've gotten very good at on the medical side yet. And I had someone warn me about doing it, because when I came home on last time I went home on leave before I got out, I had someone say, "Be careful about getting this a foot surgery." But I'm like, I really don't
I
have an option. My foot is
Yeah.
completely crooked, and I'll say the one thing that really screwed up my process of healing was because of COVID. Physical therapy was a joke,
Dude, cut
and
so much stuff up.
um, because my roommate, he's one of my dear best friends. He had issues with the physical therapist. I had issues with physical therapist. Like, he was so terrified of COVID. And I have a very different stance in COVID than some people. I get it. Some people it's very scary. To a lot of us, when I was in, we really weren't terrified of it and everything. But again, each their own. But it was like very hard to get proper care at the time, because actually they were canceling a lot of people's surgeries while I was in, because COVID struck like the last 6 months of my military career. But yeah, after that, I decided to go into the Army National Guard and transition out, and transition the bitch that no one warns or really prepares you about. And that was actually another thing. Because of COVID, we really couldn't even do a proper TRS either.
Oh my
We
god.
had to do me and my
TRS was terrible before COVID. I cannot imagine what COVID
well,
did do.
well, the thing is when you give Marines a online thing and it's slideshow, me and my roommate, we did it the same week together, and we're just like click, 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 because there's so much information to read, and me and him are like, part of us was being lazy, but the other sense of, we weren't guys that you're just going to sit here by PowerPoint. And no, that made everything more difficult. So yeah,
And the
I
military aspect, like our mindset is too, like I can do this. Like I don't need all this paperwork to tell me what I need to do. And
no,
like
exactly.
yeah, so there's one thing that I wanted to touch on. Oh, you're probably going to bring it up when we're talking about transitioning, but the military is hard on our bodies. And then, which wouldn't be such a big deal because, like, yes, you're going to war, you're training for war. These are hard things, you're expected to do it. Okay, great. We'll acknowledge that the military is hard on our bodies. But then they need to have things in place where you're treating them properly during, and then the VA needs to be better. It
Well,
needs to be better.
I will actually touch on certain aspects of that as well, and things I think people need to do in transition. But no, yeah, I got my first year I got out was definitely a very hard year. Um, I got out. I'm gonna say I am probably like the stereotypical vet. I have a really good friend of mine. He is actually gonna be my best man at my wedding exactly a week from now.
Oh,
He
congrats. That's exciting.
thank you very much. He had an apartment, him and his girlfriend. They're like, hey, do you want to move in with us? Just pay, make rent cheaper on us. And I'm like, thank you. Um, it was I after the military. I did have family members I could have went and lived with, but I'm like, no, I'm a man. I need to do things my way. I got my own apartment in 3 months. I started working, but I definitely slipped down a route where I was definitely drinking way too much. Definitely depressed, and I was shoving everything down I felt from the last 4 years because I'm a huge person that listens to a lot of veteran podcasts. I'm very big into figuring this out. And the thing that no one ever really, I didn't find out until a couple years later, you suffer so much loss the day you get out and you don't even realize it. Loss of identity, lots of friends, lots of purpose. You've lost your job, technically. You suffer all this loss and you don't know how to deal with it. No one tells you how. There isn't a book, there isn't a guideline. It's like, we're done with you. Bye. Even though I was an Army National Guard, that was still part of the transition because that was actually hard for me because I still have to keep one foot in being part of the military, but I need to take one foot out and try to be a civilian.
Yeah. And even though you were in the Army, the National Guard, like you weren't a Marine anymore. And there's still something about that title that we as that we have it. There's
Killed
when
me.
you
Like I
don't
just
have it anymore. Yeah.
since I did deploy to a combat zone, like in the National Guard or the Army, if you deploy to a combat zone, you have a combat patch and you put it on your shoulder. And I wore my diamond patch proud. Like I'm proud of this. This is the only reason I like putting this uniform on because I miss my woodland camis or my desert camis. Like it felt different. It was kind of hard, and actually that was a huge shocking there too because they also that's the thing about the guard I want to give a lot of credit to. I don't think a lot of people realize though the guard does deploy quite frequently. They
Yeah.
do have to deal with a lot of stuff, and that was something I learned about like state emergencies, and that's a lot of the great part about the guard. But like the first 2 months I got to the guard, this is where this one topic really started to open up my eyes to things. Two guys in my unit killed themselves the first 2 months I was there,
Jesus.
and I started seeing the dark side of that, and I didn't really know how to think and process it because I wasn't close with these guys. But later on, I kind of learned how much it impacts. But no, I joined the guard. About about 6 7 months in, I went to a course, and at this point in my life, I would say I was not doing well in my transition. I was working a job through a municipality doing energy assistance. My body's constantly hurting. I had a girlfriend at the time I just broke up with. I had no business being in a relationship at that time. She also had no business being in a relationship either. She just freshly came out of a relationship. I was out of the military. I was lonely and wanted someone, and that was a very toxic situation where it was best to go our separate ways. So I went to this course. They needed volunteers to go. It was called Health and Wellness. It was about like mental health, physical health. It was about a bunch of different things. I'm like, oh, I'll go try this course. And that's where I really started to see the problems come into place. Um, I learned my mentality as a Marine, especially being an infantryman. I was very overly aggressive. I didn't realize at the time until taking a step back years later and looking at it. Like I didn't get along if I went this course. I didn't I will then agree with a lot of things they're preaching, and we're doing. And I actually where I end up doing through physical PT, I re-injured my foot again, and this kind of leads me to the process of I actually was putting me on the path to possibly be medically separated out of the National Guard because of it. Because they sent me to the hospital at this course. The doctor told me, they're like, I think you may need to think about walking away from the infantry or do something else. I'm like, I don't want to walk away from the infantry. That's what I want to do. And they're like, well, I think you may have to think about getting out. So that happens. And all right, that summer we really didn't do much in the Guard. I was just doing my job. And then one of the biggest, saddest days of my life hit. My recruiter, my brother, my friend, someone that was very close to me. I come home, pull my apartment parking lot, and I see a Facebook post saying he's gone. I start looking and found out he killed himself.
Oh my God.
And that really is when things even started going more downhill for me. But and then shortly after that, the whole Afghanistan withdrawal thing happened, and I never saw anger after what happened with that because I didn't know any of those guys personally, but I've seen them around. I've seen their faces. We were in the same regiment, same place, and I saw something from every guy I served with, an anger I've never seen before. And most guys I serve with, we don't post on social media a lot. We don't do this. No, just for a solid 2 weeks. So that started creating more of an anger. Then just all that stuff going on. So a few months before then, though, I started to take the steps of I need help. I need to start making changes. And I went through the VA and I started filing my claims. And I'm going to say this to any veteran listening or any veteran, the VA is not perfect, but there are things that they can help you out with. There are things that can make your life easier by taking advantage of your veteran benefits. So I went in, I filed my claims for mental health, hearing, my foot, my knee, and doing that has really allowed me the chance of getting VA compensation to really help me out and figure out more things in life because I couldn't work the job I was working anymore. My knees were shot. My feet couldn't handle it. Like, so it really opened the door of opportunity for me to do things. But through the National Guard, something I did on a PHA, I decided to be honest with something that I remember on active duty, never say you're suicidal, never talk about it. So I decided to be honest about it. And sorry, it's a very hard thing to talk about. It's not something I really talk about much, but it's better to just be honest, I feel. I came home one night very late and was just done with life, done with everything. Who the hell am I? I'm not a Marine anymore. I'm washed up. I'm broken. And decided to put a gun in my mouth. Almost pulled the trigger. And then I don't know what it was. Something came over me. And I called one of my best friends from the Marine Corps. His name's Alex Dahl. And he picked up the phone. I just broke down. And essentially, if he wouldn't have picked the phone that night, I would have just went through with it. And he saved my life.
Oh.
And
Well,
the Guard.
thank you for talking about that because I know it's so uncomfortable to talk about, and I'm so glad that you're still here. And I hope that everyone feels like that's kind of why I have this podcast. Is if someone feels like they don't have that person that they can call, like I want them to feel like that's me. Like no matter what, even if I don't know them, even if they've never said a word to me, like if any moment that they're just like I don't want to do this anymore, who can I call to tell me why I should still do this? I want that person.
I'll say the big thing we need to do when we get out is talk to our buddies, talk to our friends, because actually before I was on here, I was talking to one of my roommates from the Marine Corps, one of my good friends. I really make an effort to always check up on guys, see how they're doing, see how they're feeling, and just being there for them. And I have a lot of guys do the same for me that way, and that's a huge thing. And I'll say this is where the Guard kind of helped me realize, well, there's two things that really helped me realize I needed help. One of my best friends I served with, Evan Boltmeyer, he was a big Christian, and he really helped guide me down my path to find my faith in Jesus Christ again, and that was a huge part of it. And that, because he's my Lord, my Savior, and I owe him everything, but all praise goes to him. But also in the National Guard, because in that PHA, I decided to be honest. There's this female major. She read my report. She wouldn't let me, when we were doing our medical stuff. If you read, she's like, I see you're having a lot of problems with your foot. You're having severe mental health. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. And she wouldn't let me leave her office until I talked about it. And thank God she did, because she's like, I see you have your VA compensation. I see that we can get you help. And I started going to the vet center and seeing a counselor. And I thank you to that man so much, because I'm still in counseling, but I'm happy I did, because he going there helps me leave so much stress out, anger, frustration, anxiety, things I felt and dealt with from time of service, childhood, everything. And then that was a huge step. But because of my foot, though, going through the process, I they ended up giving me the option to either go on a board or just take the honorable medical separation. And I'm like, I think it's just wise to take the honorable medical separation, because I'm not an asset right now to the military. I'm a weakness, and it sounds horrible to say that, but like, I can't physically hike right now, and I also know mentally I'm not in a good spot either. Like, and I was sitting here ashamed of that, and my buddy said to me, he's like, "You've done almost 6 years in the military. 6 years. Shut the fuck up. Stop being ashamed of yourself. It's time that you focus on yourself and take care of what you need to take care of."
I love that. And I'm really glad. How would you feel? How would you say that your mental health is now, like, after
I have my good and I have my bad days. I'm not gonna lie, there's days that this wave of depression of everything will just hit me. I'll be at work and for no reason. Um, and there's just things that I see, there's things that sometimes bother me. There's just things, but I try to find ways and outlets not to let it bother me.
What can you tell us what some of those outlets may be now, so people listening can have ideas as well?
I'm big into hunting. I'm big into fishing. I love just being outdoors, and that's a way that makes me remind me of being in the military, like being in the field. Like, hey, you're just doing this on your own now. I got involved in a veteran shooting group where me and a bunch of vets will meet up a few times a year and go to the range, being part of that camaraderie. Staying where I'll say my fiance is a wonderful person, especially her being an ER nurse. He honestly is someone that can see and understand how I feel sometimes, and he's very good at understanding when I get into one of those moods and how to handle it. And I give her a lot of credit, because I'm not for her, I say you did not pick an easy person to be with. But I will say just my buddies too. When I'm having a bad day, I call them, and vice versa. They do the same for me. We just venting it out with your buddies you served with and staying close to them, I think, is just one of the biggest things you could do.
I agree. I agree. Trying to keep the brotherhood and the community alive, even after. That's like the best thing that we can try to do. And that's why I feel like this has kind of created that. Because I didn't even know you until this. And I absolutely love I love your outlook. I can appreciate your story. And I really, I'm grateful that you wanted to, like, you're so passionate that you want to come here and talk to me about it.
And that's, yeah, no, and I'm a huge advocate of it, because even this past year, because I've had another two buddies lose their life in this past year. One of them, he died in a car accident. We picked up Corporal the same day together. We knew each other the whole time, and that was rough. And then we got the news another buddy of ours killed himself, and it really right there just shows me that, like, you gotta reach out. There is ways of help, and there is things the VA could do better. Like, I will say I'm not a fan of the VA and their physical therapy, because I've been having a lot of issues with my knee, and they're like, "Oh, here's physical therapy. See you again in like a month and a half." I'm like, "What? How's this supposed to help? You're supposed to work with me, not just send me home." Yeah, I do these exercises and stretches. You're not. That's my one beef there with the VA. But
I have a couple of beefs. The community care needs to be better. I just started pain management, but it took me like 3 years to get the referral. I finally got new glasses after 2 years of needing glasses. But it's because I don't live in district of any of the VAs, so they have to community care me, and then they don't follow through with it. It's this whole thing.
Yeah, that was a big issue too, because I live about an hour from my closest VA, because I recently moved and bought a house a few months ago, and I'm like, can you send me the physical therapy closer to me? It's not convenient for me to go to the VA and do that. And then I will say the one thing, though, is when it comes to the mental health treatment, though that's where I will say a positive, because the type of person that I found was a veteran. He is someone that understands. And I think that's a big thing about veterans seeking out therapy, is trying to find that veteran therapist. Because I have another friend who also sees a veteran therapist, because it's like, as veterans, we're very stubborn. We see things in a different light, but it's also the military world and the civilian world are two different places, and you kind of do need that person who understands and has been through what you've been through to be able to help you through your issues.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been starting to call the civilian world the real world, because it feels like the military is kind of this like separate world that you're in, and then you come in and it's like, this is where everybody else is. This is the real world. This is where you need to exist right now, and that's why I call it that now.
No, and I definitely agree with that. There's a lot of things, and like I'll even say like I've been told that I have a very intense personality, and sometimes it's very hard with people I work with people around, like, because there's certain aspects of the military changed in my head, like that's been very hard for me, because I learned when someone screws up in a work environment, you can't go at them gun ho. You can't talk to them the way you talk to people in the military. That's been a very hard challenge. And I'll be honest, even like in certain issues with certain people, like it's just hard, because I think the military also gives you really, like, I developed really bad anger problems from the military.
Everything's it's like rage, anger, and it's like, even because in boot camp, I remember you don't want to mess up. You're afraid that someone's going to be mad. You're going to get yelled at. There's so much. And that anxiety that you kind of learn in boot camp of like making sure that you're doing everything right or you're going to get yelled at, it doesn't really ever go away.
No,
and no one talks about that.
If I show up late to work, because of the military, I have so much anxiety about being late. I have so much anxiety about not making timelines, not being where I need to be. Where when I do something wrong, because this was drilled into our heads, when you make a mistake, I remember someone dropped a guy once while doing a CASEVAC drill, and he's like, I'm going to be a little over top. He's like, he's fucking dead. He's fucking dead. You got him killed. Now you have to write a letter home to his mother and tell him why he got killed. Where if you do this wrong, someone could fucking die. And when that's drilled into your head and coming into civilian world,
someone dies.
Not everything is as serious as that, but that does live with you. And I personally think, overall, depending on, in certain aspects of the military, more or less, the military is a very traumatic experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Like, to play off of that, where mistakes in the military, you're taught this, someone could get hurt, someone could die. But and you're taught like these mistakes over and over. And sometimes in the military, the mistakes that you're being yelled at for aren't that serious. And then that anxiety you take out to you in the real world, into your everyday jobs, where you're like, I don't want to mess up because I'm anxious that something's going to happen. But I'm here to tell you that nothing as severe as someone's going to die is going to happen. It's okay. And stressing about it is like, just, you need, instead of focusing your energy on messing up, focus on doing the best that you can in that moment and being genuinely good at whatever it is that you're doing. And that's what you need.
Well, I'll say it's kind of like a double-edged sword too, because there's a positive to that. Because right now I'm a CNC operator in a shop. I run a machine. It makes certain types of parts, but it's very attention detail oriented, and I've gotten very good at it. And the reason why I've gotten so good at it is because of that attention to detail the military teaches you. You're always looking for the small stuff, where I'm not being mean to the average civilian. They're not taught that. They're not taught attention to detail.
That's such a good point. It's taking the good with you and letting go of the bad. That anxious feeling you don't need, but that attention to detail, keep it.
No, there's lots of positives. Like there's a lot of resilience that the military definitely teaches you, that I think is a huge positive. Like, but at the same time, like, there is a part I do feel about maybe being a veteran, that you do feel very different from a lot of people. I remember when I got out. I went to a 4th of July party. A bunch of guys I went to high school with. There was about 40 guys there. I was the only one that served, and everyone's coming up to me, asking me questions, and it was just kind of like, I don't want to talk about it. It's like it's kind of hard too because sometimes people hear you're in the military and they want to ask a lot of questions, and sometimes you don't necessarily want to answer those questions because one of them, they were throwing off fireworks, firecrackers, and like, this is going to set up any type of. And I never said anything about having PTSD or anything, but like, no, it's not. But it actually did set me off because one of them threw a firecracker right next to my left ear, where I have pretty decent tendonitis and hearing loss, and I flipped the fuck out.
Which you deserve to. Anyone should if there's a firecracker right by their ear. But yeah, it's important to talk about that. Okay.
Like,
I have a question.
Yes.
So how do you spend your time now? Like, what do you do for work now?
I've been kind of bouncing around. So I've done a lot of different things since I got out of the military. I worked for a municipality for a year and a half. I worked on a landscape crew as an operator for a little bit. But the last year, I even did a semester of college, and this semester of college really, this is actually where I'm very proud of myself. I coached wrestling too for a bit. But in that semester of college, I really got to push myself and see I wasn't an idiot. I got the highest GPA I ever got. I passed all my classes, but mentally I just wasn't in a good place. I didn't like school. Being almost a decade older than everybody was very hard on me mentally. The professors, everything. It was like nothing against college, but it's like it's very hard going into that environment when I feel like you still maybe have a lot of work to do mentally, and that was a big thing. But I decided not to go back, not just because of that, but that was one reason too. But coaching wrestling was definitely something that really helped me. My wrestlers I coached, they always said something very interesting. They're like, "Coach, you're so hard on us, but when we need someone to be there for us after like a tough loss or something, you're there." I'm like, my philosophy is if you give me 100%, I can't be mad at you. Now, if you don't give me 100%, I will be straight up bruised, honestly, with you on why you're not winning. And that was my biggest.
The kind of leader I always tried to be too, even with my kids. Like, I don't want my kids to be scared of me. I remember being scared of some leaders. Like, I remember being like, I don't want them to freak out on me for no reason. But the leaders that truly made an impact on me were the ones that I was afraid to disappoint. Because their outlook and their opinion of me truly mattered because I cared about them. And that's the leader that I always kind of strive to be. Like, I don't want people to be like, oh, Shauna's going to freak out if I don't do this right. But like, how's Shauna going to feel about me after?
And that's something totally to understand, because this is actually something that's learned me a big lesson, because that after that semester of school, I found out my fiance was pregnant and we had a newborn, and it's just interesting on how you always think life's gonna get easier. Our son was actually born at 10 weeks premature at 3 pounds, and spent 70 days in the hospital. And that was I'll be honest, that's kind of where the mental health plays an aspect, because like me and her, because she had it was very traumatic on her, and then me, we both went through a lot with that, and that's kind of where the ups and the lows come. Because sometimes I feel as a veteran, when you can feel like you're doing great and have your highs, but something can really knock you down. But it's also trying to come back, learning to come back from that stuff too is a big part.
Absolutely. I mean, like this is like, I always say, like, mental health is the focus in the veteran community, but like all veterans are still humans, and all humans have problems outside of being whatever their profession is. And it's acknowledging that and realizing that, like, yes, you are a veteran, but you're also a human. And this is like, you need to address these things. And in the military too, it's important. I think that mental health should be a bigger force in the military right now.
Oh, most definitely. And I see it with a lot of people getting out, that a lot of guys are depressed, a lot of guys are lost. And I tried applying for a job actually at the VA as a peer support apprentice. Unfortunately, I didn't get it. I'll be honest, my goal and my dream in life is to find a way to work and help veterans, even if it's just a small thing in my community. Like, I just started going to a new church, and they have requests for certain Bible studies, and I'm thinking about in the near future requesting to start a veterans Bible study. just because me personally, faith is also one of the biggest things that I lean on to help me. Going to church, going to Bible studies, praying, is what definitely helps me when I'm in those dark moments. Because the way I look at it is with some of the things you go through in life and experience, you're gonna have scars up here, up in your head, but you also need to figure out how you can heal them and figure out how you can keep those demons inside your head at bay as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I really appreciate that. Okay, so if for anyone listening that wants to follow you or support you, what's the best way to do that?
You can follow me at my TikTok.
Oh wait, hold on, it's glitching. Are you still there? I'm gonna give it a minute. Mine's frozen.
I'm back. Sorry. Follow me on my TikTok. I think my TikTok is Maxwell Richard. Where if you want to follow me on Facebook, I'm Max Stanky 145. I'm not Facebook, Instagram. Sorry, I'm not. I don't use a social media.
I'm so
crap ton.
bad. I just have Instagram so that I can make sure that there's a community worth of people, and then I try to post it everywhere.
I honestly kept my Instagram, but I deleted the app, and then my fiance tagged me, and so she's like, "You didn't? Are you still on Instagram or something?" I'm like, "Oh, if you want me, I'll keep it there." I use Facebook the most, but I tend to keep that private. If you look at my friends list, it's literally nothing but guys I served with, and a few people from high school, and some family.
Okay, well, absolutely, I love that. I love the secret, and you just coming on here and sharing your like experience with us is all I need. So I'm super grateful for that.
Thank you so much for having me on, Shauna, and letting me tell my story and asking the questions you did. I hope whatever I did today will be able to help any other veterans on their journey of getting out and doing what they do. And the one thing I just want to throw out there before we get off is I definitely recommend when you get out, go and make your VA claims right away when you get out, because that will make a world of difference on you and on a financial situation as well.
There's also some cases, I'm going to piggyback off that, where you can kind of slowly start the process before, and like being like, this is when I'm planning the EAS and this is all the stuff. Mm-hmm. And yeah, please do that. Think about your future. And I know it's hard when you're young, and it gets easier as you get older because you realize like, hey, this would have been easier if I planned. Oh. Well, I'm telling you now, in my 30s, my life would have been a lot easier if I had planned better getting out.
No, and I have buddies that recently are doing it now, and they're frustrated because it's a little harder. And I will say me and my buddies did get screwed because of COVID, because they kind of told us piss off and do it when you get out. And that's one reason a lot of guys I served with didn't hop on it right away. But no, I'm a big advocate of people going through and taking advantage of every benefit that they have earned, because there's a stigmatism, I want to say, where people sit here and get mad when they hear someone from the military has VA disability. They're like, oh, you don't look disabled. No. Every veteran raised their right hand. They were willing to give up a piece of themselves for our freedom of our country. They deserve to take advantage of every benefit that they're given.
Absolutely, because the benefits that we get, we also fight to get them, unfortunately, through the VA. So yes, you deserve these. If you get it, you deserve it, and don't question that.
So. Well, thank you so much for having me on, Shauna. I want to say also I love what you're doing for your podcast as well. I found you through JP, the veteran coach. I've been following him for quite some time, and when he said on his podcast he hopped on, I started listening to a bunch of your stuff, and I really appreciate just hearing from the average veteran community their experience and their stories, and it's truly amazing what you're doing, and keep going out there and trying to save one veteran a day at a time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You are so awesome.
Thank you.
All right, I'll see ya. Bye.